Well, this is a guy that if you're drafting him right now in a redraft league, you're still going to have to pay up for him. A little interested to see him on your list here, Brad, was Myles Garrett, defensive end for the Browns. So he turns 28 at the end of this season. 4 years left on his deal. He's got cheap outs if the team wanted to move on from him for some reason in 25 and 26. But it looks like he's going to be with the Browns for a while, the way they've gone all in there with that Deshaun Watson contract and some of the moves they're making. Past 2 years, he's had 55 combined tackles, 16 sacks, and 17 and a half tackles for a loss average. So he is still an elite player. Are you just trying to get out while the getting's good, or do you smell something you don't like on the horizon?
Well, it's kind of where there's smoke, there's fire. Like we even going into the offseason, we heard that, maybe Cleveland's getting kind of soured on the Myles Garrett relationship, and maybe something happens, maybe it won't happen. Obviously, we're not in the front office. We don't really know what they're going to do. But what I do know is that, he is pushing 28. And at this point, you're not going to get a better return for a guy like Myles Garrett. He's got the name cachet. He's got the production. He's got, the health. Everything that you can ask for. So if you can cash out and get a really premium return, why not? If you're not competing, why not? If you're, there's so many situations where I'm like, why not? And when we were putting our list together for this show, if I start to check off a lot of those boxes, then a guy feels like he fits in the list. This is very much like a Foyer situation. Getting close to that 30 mark, Myles Garrett could be a productive guy for, 4 to 5 more years, the way that he takes care of himself, but that doesn't mean he will be. That just means he could be. So for me, it's, like you said, get out while the getting's good, and you have plenty of reason to sell high. Nobody should be asking for a discount. Even if somebody comes at me and says, well, there's a lot of concern about his attitude or whatever, I say, well, the production's on the field. I'm not going to sell him cheap.
Now, again, variable by league, but is this a guy that you could see going for a first? If we're talking just draft picks, because we know it's not always a draft pick world for players that are doing fantasy leagues, but do you think you could get a first for him in sort of whatever your standard IDP league is?
No, It's hard to get first for IDP players ever. It feels like, even in the leagues where it's very savvy IDP owners, man, people just don't want to give up a first for an IDP asset, and I don't blame them. I would probably ask for a first and see if an owner is interested. Because it's a negotiation. It doesn't hurt to start and see. And if not, say, well, give me a second and a young player, or give me if it's 2-1, give me 2-1, and you're close to that first round type valuation, and go from there. Or a future first. What if somebody says, hey, I'll give you my 2024 first. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll wait a year for it. What about you? What would you do with him, and how would you evaluate his worth and picks?
If you're contending or close to contending, if you think you're realistically in that ballpark, and I know sometimes we're not all realistic with our teams because we all like to see things with rose-colored glasses, I'd be keeping them at that point. But if you're not really sure what you're doing and you're kind of on that fence because maybe you have a good offense, but you're not sure about your IDPs, I kind of do. In most of my leagues, it isn't, the same, like you said, balanced 1-for-1 offense to defense with scoring, which matters. Mm-hmm. It's usually somewhere around that half to 2/3 of what the offensive players get. But yeah, I'd be looking to move on from him if I'm not sure what I'm doing, just because I can still get that elite price, and you never know what's going to happen down the road. But those picks are always, every year, seems like most of the year, but certainly around this time when people are getting draft fever, the value of those things just keeps going up. And what might feel like a late pick this year could end up being much better for you next year. And it's great trade bait to get you someone better on offense. But it does depend on how savvy you are. I've seen people that aren't that great on the IDP side throw around draft picks because they don't like drafting rookies, and they like that given production. They know what they're getting, and they've built nice winning teams with that, especially on the defensive side, where if you don't like the scouting, you don't like the Devy side or any of that, you don't want to roll the dice with the rookies. There's nothing wrong with buying, quote unquote, sure thing talent. And if we're talking about that, in the defensive line, there's not a ton of them, but Myles Garrett is certainly one of them.
Absolutely.
One of the guys I threw on here, and a lot of people that are watching are thinking, well, no, duh, this guy is like 34 this coming year, but Cameron Jordan, the reason that I put him on here, again, in your IDP leagues, just like in life, people have different valuations of how they go about putting a cost on a player, how deep they look into the players, their situations. A lot of people just look at stats, and stats fine, but they don't paint the whole picture.
Right.
Cameron Jordan continues to be productive. Like even last year was a down year, if you want to call it, for him. But he still had 8.5 sacks and 66 overall tackles. It was one of his highest tackle seasons of his career. I think it was second or third. So he's still giving you good production. This team is a team that is going for it in the Saints. You know, it seems like against all odds, you'd think they'd have to try to reset at some point, but they keep kicking that can farther and farther down the road. But Cameron Jordan, you know, time is going to catch up with him eventually. His contract, he's under contract for this year, next year, and that's it. You know, he's going to be turning 35. It's going to end for him at some point too. But if you have someone that's interested in him, I'm looking to move on from him, even if I'm a contender, because in dynasty leagues, I am looking at least at a 2 to 3 year window, sometimes farther, you know, depending on the team that you have in the league. Some leagues you have a little bit more faith in that are going to hold up than others. So if I'm in a league that I have him and I'm even contending, yeah, I'm moving on from him just because he doesn't really fit that longer term window, and his production, if I had to guess, it was probably going to be about the same as it was last year or a little less because he just can't keep doing it forever.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's done it right his entire career. He takes care of himself. He's a student of the game. He's probably one of the smartest players on the field every week, in and out. And, you know, it's hard to really be concerned that he's going to drop off in production, at least this year and probably next, if he's in this Saints defensive scheme that he's super comfortable in. But I'm with you. You know, I would almost literally take whatever somebody's offering to move on from him, because if you wait another year, if you wait another 6 months, I mean, things could change so quickly. I mean, this team could very quickly be in a spot where, you know, it just doesn't have any value for you. And if that's the case, then I might as well sell now and get what you can.